Today's video, I'm going to do a quick guide on how to play Season 3 Charlotte correctly. Now, before the Season 3 banner came out, I made a video talking, reviewing all of the different characters. I will post a link in the description below in case you want to check it out, but I basically in that video said Charlotte is not as good as what people hyped her to be because she is a character that needs a lot of skill cap to actually play her correctly, especially if you don't have her duped out. Then a lot of her skill only lasts for one turn, and that makes it very difficult to actually use her correctly or properly in practice. And now I have taken a look at some of the showcase video other content creators are making on Charlotte. A lot of them also now come to realize that you kind of really need her at LR5 for her to work her best. But at the same time, doing those showcases, I realized a lot of people are still playing Charlotte, like a non-dupe Charlotte, in the same way as they would play LR5 Charlotte, because LR5 Charlotte is the fastest unit in the game, so obviously you can play her in a certain way without needing to worry other people outspeeding you. But a non-dupe Charlotte behave totally differently, and you do need to actually treat that slightly differently as well and play in different teams and also come up with different gameplays, etc. So that's the reason I made this video today, kind of talking about how would you actually play Charlotte correctly if you do not have her duped out, because she can still be effective. You just need to play her in the right way. Now, the team I'm going to show is Mono Blue, and it's working really well for me in PvP right now. If we go into event arena, okay, I just got knocked down. But you can see I am hovering around rank 50. Today is the last day of the season, so let's see where I end up in. But yeah, basically you can see when you pick your battles, you can obviously pick easy opponents, etc. So you can get 100% win rate there. That's easy. But you can see it also works for me defensively if you know what is kind of the situation you want to go into. And this is for event arena, where pretty much it's all speed meta, right? So you can see that even though my Charlotte is not maxed out, is still able to cope with the speed meta despite the fact that she is actually going to be outsped by anyone else that I'm facing, etc. But it's going to work for you. And then if you go into the normal PvP, what you would also see is that I am doing okay as well. Similar kind of stats. So obviously I got careless and lost a few matches in attack. But you can see defensively, I'm getting 60% win rate as well. And once again, that is with Mono Blue team. So this is a team that I'm using. You do need LR5 with him to kind of still make you go somewhat faster. And it's actually very important when you're playing with a non-dupe Charlotte to still have someone who is able to control the speed. So that's kind of why you do need the LR5 with him. But you can see it totally is able to work for you. And this is the first week of the season as well, so everyone's trying to fight to get into the upper league. So you can see it's still able to comfortably get me into top 500, and I didn't even need to buy any tickets this week either. So it just works really well if you do actually able to execute it correctly. Now, you don't need any speed talent stone for it. So the highest talent stone I have is I only have one copy of this not this one, this is on juniors, but if we go into my William, you will see that I do have a +2 speed, and this is from is it Spy of Honor? That monthly event where you can get like a +2 of any kind of talent stone. So basically I got this speed +2, and I don't have any speed +3. If you want to check my you know my units, etc. I don't have a +3 anywhere, and also I'll show you I'm free to play as well. So obviously I wouldn't have to pay the crystal to actually buy the pack in the first place. So it still is able to work really well as long as you know how to do it correctly. So how would you actually play Charlotte correctly? Basically, if your Charlotte is not maxed out, one thing you need to realize is that a lot of her skill, first of all, she's gonna be not the fastest unit in the game. So right, enemy Finro and enemy Valters are gonna move before you, obviously. But also the other most important part to me is actually the how many turns your counterattack is going to be valid for, because when you actually have her at LR5, the counterattack is going to last for 2 turns, and that's going to be a totally different behavior to only having 1 turn of counterattack. Because if your counterattack is for only 1 turn, as soon as someone hits you, sorry, as soon as you move, then that buff is gone. So you almost need the enemies to move before you and actually attack you for you to actually take effect. And it's also the same thing for total defense, because if the enemy is not attacking you, then you're attacking first, then the buff is just going to be gone. This is only for 1 turn. If you look at Charlotte's kit, you have this increase all attack buff for 2 turns, total defense for 1 turn, and also counter attack for 1 turn. And if you're not able to really manipulate the speed to let the enemy attack you while those buffs are available, you essentially lose 2/3 of Charlotte's kit. And then, of course, people will say Charlotte is not actually that good when she's not maxed out, because when she's actually maxed out, this becomes 2 turn, and there's much bigger margin of error, because now you don't even need to manipulate speed. You are always guaranteed to be able to counter that. And that's kind of why max out Charlotte is like a totally different beast. But how would you actually play it without any dupe? It's really to manipulate the speed so that you do have those buffs available when the enemies are attacking. So how would you be able to do that? Basically, there are 2 ways of doing it. One is you make all of your units slower than the enemy, right? So that's quite obvious. So when the enemy attack you, because you haven't acted yet, your buffs are still on, and therefore you're able to activate either the total defense or activate the counter attack. So that's one way of doing it, and that's the simpler way of doing it, but at the same time, it's the less controllable way of doing it, because it does depend on what team the enemy is going to bring, and also there even may be some situations where the enemy may choose to bring speed gears on certain unit, and that kind of mess up your game plan, etc. But I will talk about that as well, and the ways to increase your likelihood, and also certain situations where you are still able to control to some extent. Then there's the second strategy you can do, which is actually a very niche scenario, but I that is kind of the one I am most in favor of, because it's actually one that can be controlled by you, and that is making Charlotte slower than your other teammates. So because your other characters in your team is going to move in front of Charlotte, what's going to happen is that they will take their first turn already, and Charlotte will activate their buff, and that buff is going to be available till your character's second turn. And during that time, the enemy is bound to attack you, right? There's no way you can move twice before the enemy even gets a turn. So therefore, you can guarantee your buffs are going to be available when they do attack you. And that is a lot more controllable on you, because all you need to do is to make sure your characters are faster than Charlotte, which is not easy because Charlotte is still very fast even when she's not duped out. But it is possible. There's one combination I found which is possible, and that's what I'm going to show you today as well. Okay, so let's start off with the first strategy, which is how to make your whole team go slower than your enemies. Now, like I said, it's not going to be 100% controllable, but you can increase the likelihood by not bringing any LR gear, not bringing any speed gears on you. Now, in terms of gear set, one thing I want to also mention, in terms of gear set on Charlotte, I saw a lot of people advising for Charlotte to go for a 4 set speed gear. Once again, that's the build if you are actually having max out Charlotte, so that you're actually competing with the Finrose, the Valtos on who's the fastest and who goes first, etc. If you do not have that, or honestly, there's no need for you to go for a 4 set of speed, because you're not going to win anyway. So what's the point of wasting up some space where you can put a different gear in? So I definitely do not recommend going 4Ps on Charlotte if you're not, if you don't have her maxed out. Now, basically, the way for you to make sure you go slower, well, not make sure, but increase the likelihood of you going slower than your opponents, is to make sure you take off the speed gear on all of your units. So, if you look at my Julius, for example, you can see I don't have any speed set. Lotus is also the one I'm using in event PvP. I don't have any speed set, etc. So basically, because you don't have a speed set, if the enemy do play speed set on theirs, and a lot of time people do play speed on Julius, therefore you're able to make sure you go lower than juniors, etc. Than the enemy juniors. You can also go even further by taking off your any speed talent stone as well, because a lot of time, once again, people do put a speed talent stone on their unit. So if you actually do take that off, then that can also work to your advantage, and that will be one way of increasing the likelihood of your opponents moving before you. And then in terms of one situation where I found you can actually guarantee this is actually if when the enemy have a single Finral or Valtos. Basically, when the enemy have a single Finral or Valtos, they're gonna be faster than your Charlotte, right? That's gonna be the case no matter what. However, if your Charlotte actually have a two-piece speed kit, what's gonna happen is Charlotte's actually gonna cut the queue. So even though, for example, their Valtos is gonna buff up the mobility of the three other enemies, Charlotte is actually gonna move right after Valtos and therefore still be able to activate whatever before the other three enemy able to do their move, and therefore that gives you the perfect position to actually place a counterattack on your whole team or reduce the damage, prevent the enemy nuking, etc. And basically that's one scenario where you are able to actually guarantee that. So when you see an enemy only have a single Finral or single Valtos, that's kind of playing right into your hand because that makes you the perfect timing for Charlotte to be able to launch a skill and make sure all three of the enemy is gonna attack right before the rest of your team, and that's like absolutely perfect. And that's kind of one way where you can kind of utilize Charlotte to the max. And for this to happen, you do need to have a two-piece speed set. If you don't have the two-piece speed set, then unfortunately Charlotte's not going to cut the queue. So two-piece speed set is still relevant on Charlotte for those situations, but it's not going to be relevant for the second strategy, which I'm going to talk about later. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is if the enemy do have both Finral and Valtos, then unfortunately Charlotte would not be able to cut the queue. So in those cases, maybe especially if the enemy is going for like a full one-turn kill, nuke, etc., then maybe you actually want to protect your Charlotte a bit and actually just take off the speed set altogether and just go even more defensive. So that's up to you to decide. But whenever you see an enemy line up, which is a single Finral or single Valtos, this is the right way of playing Charlotte by putting up a two-piece speed set and cut the queue. Okay, so this is basically the first strategy of trying to make the enemy all attack before you take your turn. Now, in terms of the second strategy, which is more controllable, how to make Charlotte be slower than your other teammates. Like I said, Charlotte have really high base speed, so even though she's not duped out, and even if I take off the gears, she is still one of the fastest unit in the game, right? Just behind William, Finral, and Valtos, and it's really hard for you to actually get someone even faster than Charlotte by themselves. Now, obviously, there are units who are able to buff up the speed in the game, so you have William, Finral, and Valtos. Obviously, it's still those three. But if you take a look, Valtos and Finral, they buffer the speed of their entire team. So if you have Charlotte on your team, Finral and Valtos are just buffing up the speed of everyone, then your Charlotte is still going to move faster than everyone else. So obviously they are not the right ways to help you manipulate speed on your team. However, William is different because William only buff up the speed for one person, and it's a really high buff as well. It's the level 4 one, which is 65% increase in speed. So what you can do is, and also William and max out William if you're able to farm off the bond and affinity from the worlds, the towns, etc. Then William is going to move in front of Charlotte, and then what you can do is if you use William to use his skill 2 on one other unit, then you're able to potentially bring that other unit much faster and then also act in front of Charlotte. Now, I haven't tried every single unit in the game, obviously, but I have tried the meta ones, and what I can tell you right now is that if you have juniors, even without any speed gear on, if William is gonna increase the speed of Junius, who I have at 108, so the base speed 107 when you max him out, plus one talent stone. Junius is gonna move in front of Charlotte, which also does not have speed gear on. So ignore those. If both Charlotte and both Junius do not have speed set on, then that Junius with the buff from William's skill 2 is going to move in front of Charlotte. And that's going to make it very ideal because then now you have two units who are going to act before Charlotte. So when Charlotte do activate her counterattack or her total defense, you are guaranteed Junius and William is going to benefit from it. Now, as for the last unit on the game, on your team, you it's going to be tricky. Basically, there's no way around that. I mean, you can play Valtos or Finro to also guarantee this, but it's unlikely you will be playing them in the same team because that's a bit weird team mixture. Um, but still getting 3 out of your 4-man team be available with that buff when the enemy attack, that's already hugely beneficial, and that's going to be a lot better than you trying to play Charlotte as if she's the faster unit and just activate total defense or activate counterattack whenever it's her turn, right? That is totally not the way of playing it if you do not have her dupe out. And I much more prefer to actually have control on my units so I know exactly when the buff is going to be available and I'm also going to be benefiting from that. Now, obviously, I just mentioned Julius, but Julius is someone who have 107 base speed and plus the I add in the +1 speed talent stone. The same is also going to be true for anyone else with 107 speed, so for example Lotus or I don't actually know, but anyone with at least 107 is going to work. I haven't tried Noel because Noel doesn't benefit from the increased attack from the skill 2. Oh, by the way, while I'm doing this, my genius is going for an attack build. Well, right now I'm going for defensive tank build, but normally you want to, for any attack pieces, you want to do attack rather than magic attack because William is buffing up attack. So this is basically what you can do. The other thing is I did mention for this to happen, both Julius and also Charlotte doesn't uh, should not have any of the speed set on because I have also tried it when both Charlotte and Julius have 2-piece speed set on, and even though William is buffing up the speed, Julius is no longer able to go in front of Charlotte. So basically, that's one situation I have also tested out, and that does make it slightly awkward for your Charlotte because in some sense, you want to play this 2-set speed set to cut the line against Finro or Valtos. However, at the same time, if you play this, then you're not able to manipulate speed so that juniors move in front of Charlotte. So that is one trade-off you have to make. Obviously, when you are attacking, you know what the enemy is. So if I see a single Finro or single Valtos, then this is going to be the set I'm going to switch on. So a single, sorry, 2-piece speed set on my Charlotte and nothing on my juniors. However, if I do not see that, and I'm just facing a normal team without him or without Valtos, then I will actually take the speed set off so that I can then manipulate speed to make my juniors go in front of my Charlotte. As for defensive one, obviously you have to take your choice on the set you want to go for. I would just suggest take a look at the meta. For example, in event PvP right now, I know the meta is a speed meta, so that's kind of why I am trying to cut the queue. Etc. However, if it's not going to be the speed meta, then I would say I will probably try to take my chances and just have my winner buffing up my my junior speed and then having my juniors move in front of Charlotte so that he can then benefit from like a whole turn of counter attack and total defense. Completely up to you to judge on defense depending on how the meta in your server is looking. But either way, both scenarios for both strategy works equally as well. Okay, now I'm going to show you a quick demo of the strategy I've just been talking about of how to manipulate the speed so juniors move in front of Charlotte. Now in this lineup, right now I am not playing any speed set on my units, so you can see juniors and also Charlotte do not have that speed set icon, and that's because I'm trying to make my juniors go in front of Charlotte. The enemies I'm facing is kind of just a variation of the double barrier team. Just for some reason they have Finro rather than Valtos. But you can see they have a speed set on his juniors. So what you can see here is the natural turn order right now is that obviously I have my uh, William completely duped out, so that's kind of why William would have the highest speed and move in front of the enemy Finro. However, because my Charlotte is not maxed out, Finro move in front of Charlotte, and also juniors obviously having lower natural base will move after Charlotte. And you can see even if juniors have the 2-piece speed set, he is still going to be slower than Charlotte, which kind of makes sense. So this is the natural order right now. And if I just play this normally, what's going to happen is that my Charlotte would move in front of my juniors. However, if what I have done is the strategy I just talked about, buffing up the speed on my juniors, his Finro is going to buff up the speed. And what you can see now is actually my juniors just cut the line and is now going to move in front of my own Charlotte. Now, if the enemy is actually playing Valtos rather than Finral, then all three of the enemy would actually move before my juniors. But either way, it's still gonna be the same. On my side, it's still gonna be the same. My juniors is gonna move faster than my Charlotte because I'll have that speed buff, and that's the main thing I really want to showcase. And the other thing is you can also see here is that let me go back slightly back onto the right turn order. What you can also see here is that my Charlotte moved after the three enemies, and that's because my Charlotte does not have the speed setup, and that's why I said if you do want your Charlotte to cut the line when enemy have a single funeral or Valdos, you do need that 2-piece speed set. But if you do that, then William is no longer then able to bring juniors in front of Charlotte. So that's kind of the trade-off you do have to make depending on which approach you want to go. Okay, my Charlotte just got stunned there, unfortunately, but otherwise she would have then able to activate the total defense or counter attack. And at this point, when enemy juniors do an AoE, and remember, enemy juniors would do an AoE at this point because I am playing a mono blue team, so I have actually sealed off the juniors skill 1 from the sorry, I have sealed off Julia's skill 2 because he was silenced, so I would have been able to guarantee that counterattack at this point when juniors do that AoE. It's just unfortunate my Charlotte's one being targeted and stunned, so that's kind of what I wouldn't be able to pull it off. But in a normal scenario, right, where my Charlotte's not stunned, when juniors use that AoE, all four of my unit would have then attacked back onto that juniors, and that basically can normally take out juniors first life.